have to choose Enter Studio. Okay. I think this is it. I think we're live. We'll see. We have viewers. Awesome. This is exciting. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everyone to Handy Quilter Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We're just gonna spend some time saying hellos, waiting for people to enter in. I hope everyone is having a beautiful morning so far. Coming to you live from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And it is a little, the sun's coming out, but it's a little windy today. So I had to do my curlers in the studio just so I could be fresh and ready for camera. I got a nice hot cup of coffee in my Handy Quilter branded mug, obviously. Oh, excellent. I already see chats popping up. Fantastic. We got, yeah, how about you start reading some? Tell me where are people signing in from? Fantastic. Good morning, Barbara. Oh, wow, Ireland. I wonder what time. It must be sometime in the afternoon there, maybe 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, something. Yeah, late afternoon quilting time. Hello, Mary from New Mexico. So, Southern California. Hello, Mary. Another Mary from Alaska. Excellent. Well, we got all the Marys on the crew here. Fantastic. Wonderful. Excellent. Oh, this is exciting. We have people popping in from all over. Let me pull my, oh, 5 p.m. Excellent. So that was 8 hours ahead of Pacific time, and Handy Quilter in Salt Lake City is a mountain time. So I know there'll be a lot of people on mountain time. So, oh, this is exciting. Excellent. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I'm excited to see so many people popping on right as we're getting started on this. We're talking about the Moxy XL today and what a fantastic machine it is. So I'm going to tell you a little about me before I get into the machines. So my name is Nicholas Turcan. I've been a Handy Quilter national educator since January of 2022, so a little over 3 and a bit years. And I run a quilting business in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So I have 3 Handy Quilter long arms, if you can believe it. I do, a few hundred quilts a year for others. So I have a Handy Quilter Fusion with ProStitcher Premium, an Amara 20 with no computerization, and I also have a Moxy XL with ProStitcher Light. Now, in my business, I use ProStitcher a lot, but my roots are I do a lot of free motion quilting because when I first got my machine, I couldn't afford to get it computerized right from the start. So I do spend a lot of time bouncing in between custom quilting, using rulers, and then switching to ProStitcher. And I love being able to switch quickly and easily between all of them. It really does work quite nicely just to bounce in between them. So if you already have a machine, maybe pop it into the comments what kind of machines everyone is quilting on. And if you don't have a machine, what's holding you back? Let's get that changed and let's see what you could do if you had one of these machines in your home. Now, currently, we do have a bundle promo going on at Handy Quilter. So if you have a local Handy Quilter retailer, pop on in, go get your hands on a machine and test them out and see what that bundle is all about. And if you are not close to a local retailer, go to handyquilter.com and check out what the promotions are online. And again, when you're ready to purchase, you can call Handy Quilter. They can get you set up with a local retailer. You can order it online through the website, and they will set you up with a local retailer. Oh no, we just got to hit that black button on the top. My camera. Hopefully. Oh no. Well, isn't that just how tech training goes? Do we have? Okay. My apologies for that. I thought I had everything so slick and ready to go, and there the camera cut out. I assume the video or the audio didn't cut out, so if you heard that, I was just saying, if you're not near a local retailer, check out the Handy Quilter website about all of the promotions. We have a bundle and save promotion going on right now, so go to the website and check that out, or go talk to your local retailer and find out that information there. So that's about me. That's where you can find out more information about actually purchasing the machines. And now I'm going to tell you more about the machine that I have in front of me. So the Moxy XL. This is a 18-inch long arm. Now we do have a stationary version that comes in a 3-foot lift table. So if you prefer where you are moving your quilt underneath the machine and underneath the needle, we do have this same machine in a stationary version. But this is the Moxy XL. This is a frame mounted machine. So that means it is on a carriage, on wheels. So the quilt gets loaded onto the frame and we are moving the machine over it. Now, let's talk about the frames. We have 2 different frames that this machine can go on. We can have it on the loft frame, which is what I currently have mine set up on. Now, this is a typical, what you would imagine a long arm quilting frame to be. And again, we have a roller up at the back. This is our take up roller. And we have 2 rollers at the front that hold our backing fabric and our quilt top. Our batting is just draped down below in between the 2 layers. And again, I have this set up in the low position. So this frame can be set into 2 different positions. We have the high position or low position. In the high position, these bars are a little bit higher, as the name suggests. And what happens is the quilt top gets loaded onto the first bar and the quilt back gets loaded onto the second bar. And this is how most of them used to come. And now we've come up with this new version where in the low position, the bars are reversed. So our quilt backing is loaded onto this first bar and our quilt top is loaded onto the second bar. Now what this does is it gives me a clear view of my entire quilting surface. Now this doesn't mean I have more stitching surface, I just have a better visual of what's coming up on my quilt. So if you're going to do something like ruler work, your ruler, as you're maneuvering it and using it on the quilt top, it can actually hang right over the edge of the bars because that top bar is no longer in your way. So on the larger class of machines, this is called clear view. And we have clear view and standard view. And on the smaller class of machines, this is called the high position or low position. And this one is the low position. Now, that is set up when you assemble your frame and you basically choose what you want, high or low, and it's set up for that. Now, we also can put this on a different frame if space is a concern. This is a 8-foot frame. It also comes in a 10-foot version. Now that takes up 8 feet or 10 feet of floor space. Plus you need a little bit of room to circle around on either side of the frame so you can get to the back of the machine to load your quilt and to the front of the machine so you can actually do your quilting, or if you have a quilt from the back kit so you can quilt from the back. But you're going to need some room to move around, so don't forget to account for that. And if space is a concern, we can put it on a different frame called the Littlefoot frame. Now, the Littlefoot frame, as the name suggests, has a little floor footprint. So it is a much smaller frame. It's only 5 feet. Now, some people might say, well, 5 feet, that's not very big. I can't quilt. All my quilts are bigger than 5 feet wide. Well, good news. The Littlefoot frame has a hooping system as well as a roller system. So you can quilt any size quilt on the Littlefoot frame. You just need to use the hooping system. So what that looks like is if your quilt is less than 48 inches, you can go ahead and use the rollers just like you would on the full-size frames. And if you're using the hooping system, what you would do is baste your quilt, and then you're going to be clamping it onto the rollers. There's bars on the side at that 5-foot length and a bar across the front. So you'd clip it onto that. You would then quilt that quilt surface that's available within that throat space, within that frame space. Then you're going to unclip it, maneuver the quilt over on your frame, reposition it, reclip it in place, and then quilt the next section. So if you're doing any custom quilting block by block, it works wonderful. And you have the ability of quilting large quilts, any size you want, with a small floor space of frame taking up. So that kind of covers the frames that we're working on. And now let's get to the machine. That's what we're all here for, right? We're here about the Moxy XL. So this is a 18-inch machine. Now that means from the needle all the way to the back here, this is called the harp, we have 18 inches of space. So that is a wonderful, you can get a lot done in an 18-inch throat space. Now, does that mean we have 18 inches of quilting space? No, it does not. Now, the one thing we have to remember is these bars take up some space. And between the needle and sort of the back of here, that takes up a little bit of space when we move our machine all the way to the back. So I like to take off between 6 and 7 inches off of the machine number, and that is my safety zone. So on an 18-inch machine, if I take off 6 inches, that gives me 12 inches of quilting space that when I'm quilting a big long quilt, 80 inches, 90 inches, 100 inches long, I'm still going to have 12 inches of quiltable space. Now, why this is important is if you're quilting an edge-to-edge pattern, if you pick a design that is larger than 12 inches, when you get to the bottom of your quilt, you might not be able to quilt out an entire row in one pass. And that's where we're going to run into some problems. Now, there is some workarounds for that, but I'm not going to go into that because I just would rather stay within that safety number. So the larger your throat space, the larger of a design you can do in one pass. Now, there's other ways around this. You can work with quilt blocks, and you can divide your design into an upper half and a lower half, and quilt all the uppers, and then advance your quilt and quilt the lowers. So it's not the end of the world by having a slightly smaller throat space. You just need to take into account what you can actually quilt when you get to your designs. Now, again, 18-inch machine, on our first pass, we have about 16 inches that we can actually quilt here, but I know that once my quilt starts to roll up on my backing bar, I'm going to lose that space. So 12 is just a guideline. But if you were only doing a small project like a baby quilt or a table runner or maybe some throw pillows, you might actually be able to quilt a 16-inch design in that first throat space and be just fine. But just be aware that that can change. Now, just like all of our machines, we have 3 different stitch modes on the Moxy XL and the rest of our family of machines. We have manual, we have precision, and we have cruise. So manual is a standard stitch mode. The machine is just going to run at whatever speed we have it set at. Now, this machine can stitch 2,100 stitches per minute. That is fast. That is almost as fast as the larger class of machines going 2,500 stitches per minute. So this machine is only slightly slower on that stitch count. And if you're stitching in manual mode, that is going to be, you're able to move quite quickly. And again, with manual, the machine runs at whatever you set it at, and it's up to you to move the machine and match your speed. Then we go into stitch modes that have regulation. So we have precision and cruise for our regulated stitch modes. Now, precision means the machine is going to stitch at exactly, precisely what stitch count we have it set to. So we can have it set from 4 stitches per inch up to 18 stitches per inch. Again, I prefer to run at around 10 stitches per inch or maybe 12 stitches per inch. If you like to run at 14 or 16 or 18, amazing, good for you. But if you ever have to unpick those stitches, you might be there a little while. So I prefer something a little more moderate, 10 to 12, where I can unpick it if I have to. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't have to do that often, but it still gives me a lot of stitches where they look great, we have good definition. Now our third stitch mode is cruise. Now this is the combination of our two stitch modes. So what cruise is, and right now I have mine set to cruise of 200 as well as 10 stitches per inch. So when I press the start button, it is going to start the machine and it is going to run at 200 stitches per minute. So that is, the needle is going to be doing a steady stitch in the background. Then as I start to speed up, the encoders on the machine will say, oh, wait, you said you wanted to do 10 stitches per inch. I better speed up to make sure that I'm stitching 10 stitches per inch. So as you speed up, the machine will speed up with you. And as you slow down, it will go back to those 200 stitches per minute. So if you are stopping as you're making like a 5-point star or the point of a leaf, it's going to make that point really nice and crisp and put a couple extra stitches there. And when you start to take off in the next direction, it will speed up and slow down accordingly. So those are the 3 different stitch modes on here. Now, we also have fully adjustable lighting on here. We can dim this light on the back. We can turn it off. I don't know if this is going to show on camera, but again, I can turn this all the way up, and I think you can see that glowing right there. And again, oh, and there's my needle camera. So that is the lowest setting. That is the light turned off, and this is going up. So again, on camera, it doesn't really show well to have the lights on here, so I'm going to turn that back down. And again, we have that adjustable lighting on here. Now, we have our handlebars that have our 4 buttons. We have on the left handlebar, we have a needle up down. So that is to cycle the needle just 1 stitch so we can pull up our thread. We have a minus and a plus, so we can raise and lower our stitches per inch, our speed. As we're stitching in manual, we can change that speed. And then we have the play pause button on the right, which is going to be our start and stop. So those are a couple of the basics for the handlebars. And again, on our little 4-inch touchscreen here, we can have our machine set to stop in needle up or needle down. So if you have a preference, you can have it set to one of those. If you're doing free motion quilting, I prefer to use needle down. So when I stop the machine, the needle will stop right in place, and I know that I won't drift anywhere. If I'm using ProStitcher, because the gears are going to be holding the machine in place, I don't need the needle to hold the machine to keep it from moving because the gears are going to hold it. So in ProStitcher, I prefer to use needle up. Now, that's an important note if you're using ProStitcher or ProStitcher Light in this case. It's very important to note that you should be leaving your needle up because when you go to stitch and the machine is about to move itself, if the needle's down, it could rip a hole in your quilt. So you always want to make sure that before you hit the run button in ProStitcher, that you have your needle up. And there will be a little flashing warning that says, make sure needle is up before you hit the resume button. So that's my little safety PSA. So back to the machine. The Moxy XL, and again, I have ProStitcher Light on here. So this tablet that you see at the top, this is the display that runs ProStitcher Light. Now, ProStitcher Light has the tablet that runs the system, as well as in the carriage down below, there are 2 motors in the machine. Those motors engage with the blue track. One of the tracks is on the frame, one of the tracks is on the machine, and that is what actually moves the machine. So that is how ProStitcher actually accomplishes the stitching that we want it to do. So little, more on the technical side of that, but that is how it actually works. Other than that, we have our thread path on the right side of the machine. So again, we're coming up from the back. This thread's like most sewing machines, you're going to follow from the side of the machine. It's going to be going right to left, sort of back to front, following through all the guides. Now again, when you buy this, you're going to get a quick reference guide. It is a little 2-page guide that has a blown up how to thread the machine. I like to keep that laminated and keep it right near where the machine is when I first started, because it was the reference that I use constantly. And again, just to double check, if you're ever feeling a little unsure, just double check it and you have right at your fingertips what you need. On the flip side of that quick reference is a quick little review of the handlebar buttons, just so you need to go, everything you need to know is right there. Now, if you already have a machine and you're already comfortable with those, we can get to a little bit of stitching now. So what I want to talk about today is showing how fun it is to go back and forth between using ProStitcher and using rulers and using free motion quilting. Again, when I do custom quilting, I like to use every tool in my arsenal, and that means relying on the free motion skills that I spent years building up, using the precision of rulers to get those precise shapes that I might not be so confident in with my free motion, like making a perfect circle. No matter how good I am, it's not perfect. I'm going to use a ruler for that, or I'm going to use ProStitcher for that. And again, when you buy ProStitcher Light, that is what runs on the Moxy XL, you get over 250 designs right when you buy the machine. So plenty of designs to get you started. So I'm going to have Rachel switch over to number 1. So what you can see here is our ProStitcher screen, and I apologize, my screen wasn't mirroring properly. I have to change something in the settings, so I just have a camera pointing at the screen, and I hope you'll forgive me for that. But this is what the ProStitcher Light screen looks like. It looks just like ProStitcher Premium. And if you're wondering the difference between them, and actually we can switch back to the other camera. Sorry about that. ProStitcher Light and ProStitcher Premium, they cover a lot of the same ground. So on the larger class of machines, we have ProStitcher Premium, and on the smaller class of machines, we have ProStitcher Light. The difference, there's a couple. First, price point. ProStitcher Light is much more affordable than ProStitcher Premium. Because it fits on the smaller class of machines, it is at a lower price point, as well as the machines are at a lower price point. So this is excellent for getting started. Now, ProStitcher Premium only fits on the larger class of machines because the motors are a bit heavier, because the machines are heavier, because they run at faster speeds. So that is some of the technical differences in between the two of them. Right out the gate, ProStitcher Premium comes with more designs, comes with over 1,000 designs on the bigger system. But those 250 designs that you get on ProStitcher Light, they can get you through a lot of quilting from the start. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, also, one of the other differences are some of the features. When you're looking at the ProStitcher screen, almost everything is identical. It's essentially running the same program with just a few minor differences that are missing on ProStitcher Light that are extras or bonuses on the premium version. So now we can switch back over to the other camera. So this is my ProStitcher Light screen. And one of the first things we want to do is we want to make sure that before we can quilt, we need to set up a frame space. So I'm going to go to the area tab. And again, I'm going to move my machine over to the far left of my frame. And again, right now I just have it at the far left corner of my quilt space. And I'm going to hit frame space. And you heard that first little ding. And if I refresh my screen, there's now a dot where that is my upper left corner. I'm going to move to my lower right side. I'm going to hit frame space again and refresh my screen. So that little burgundy box tells the machine, this is where I'm going to allow you to stitch. And right here on the size, I have it's 13.79 inches high, and the width is 37 inches. And I've just loaded some width of fabric onto my frame here. So nothing too big, but again, normally I would set that frame space to the full width of the frame, and I'm on an 8-foot frame, so I could set it up at 8 feet or just under 8 feet. And again, if you were on the little foot system, you'd be setting it at about 4 feet wide. So I'm now going to come here and I'm going to give myself an area to work in. Now, the difference between an area and the frame space. An area simply just tells the machine where it's allowed to stitch, where I can do some of that work. And an area is a more specific space that I can actually edit and adjust my designs to stitch to. So I'm going to hit 2 corner, and I'm going to move my machine down, and we'll go here and hit 2 corner. So right now, my area is 9.25 inches wide and 8.13 inches tall. And I'm going to go and actually adjust that to just be 9 inches wide, and 9 inches tall. And that box has now just appropriately changed to that size. Now that I have an area that I can actually do some stitching in, I'm going to bring in a design. So I'm going to go File, Design, and Open. And I'm going to open my 1PS Designs, and I'm going to open a block design. I'll just make that full size. So these are some of the designs that you would get included when you purchase ProStitcher Light. And I'm going to actually go for something quite simple, this grid 4 square. Now, I know it's thrilling, just a box of grids, but this is going to give us some space to actually do some work in once we want to start getting into some ruler work or getting into some free motion quilting. So this is great, but that design is only 4 inches by 4 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this to make it fit that area. So we have a couple different workarounds to do this. I can manually change the size to 9 inches by 9 inches. I can then align it to my area to make sure that it matches it perfectly. But what I could also do, and this is one of my favorite buttons, we're going to go Modify, Skew, and with the touch of one button, I'm going to hit the Skew. It has automatically resized it and stretched it to fit that area. So again, I love the Skew button. So I'm now going to baseline that design, and I'm going to move my machine a little bit closer to the start, and we're going to stitch this out. So I'm just going to go to ProStitcher. I'm going to select the Run button, and this is where we have our verify settings. So this is going to ask you, before we start to stitch, what are we stitching and how do we want to do it? So first off, I have my stitches turned on. I have a tie off at the beginning and end. I have my pull up turned on, which means it's going to take one stitch to pull up my bobbin thread. And then if we look over here, we can actually see I have that the speed is set to 100%. My stitches are at 10 stitches per inch. And again, I do have it set to cruise, so we'll actually do a cruise speed of 200 stitches per minute, as well as 10 stitches per inch. The auto jump is set to 3 inches, and there's no jumps in this design, so we don't need to worry about that. And right here, make sure needle is up. That is the most critical thing. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the proceed button, and we can switch to the needle camera, and you'll be able to see what that looks like. So yeah, so you can go ahead and switch. Perfect. So I'm going to hit the proceed button, and the machine is going to move itself to the start point, take that one stitch. And again, it's now up to me to, I was holding on to my thread tail. I'm going to pull up that bobbin. And on the other screen, it says pull up, pause, pull up thread, press resume to continue, and make sure needle is up before resuming. So I'm just going to hit the resume button. It's going to move itself right to that start point, and then it's going to stitch out our design. And it's going to take a few tie-off stitches there. And now importantly, when any design is finished stitching, what we're going to do, we're going to pull the machine about 5 or 6 inches away, and you can see that my top thread is still here. And if you could see down below, there'd be another strand of bobbin thread that's coming across the bottom. So I want to make sure that I have about 5 or 6 inches away. I'm going to grab that loop, and I'm going to move right back to that start point. I'm going to hit the needle down, needle up button. To lower my needle, it's going to grab that bobbin thread. So right here, that's that loop of bobbin thread. And again, important to make sure that we pull the machine a few inches away. And I'm actually just going to clip these flat since this is a little sample. But if you wanted to leave a little tail that you could tie off later, you're more than welcome to do that. In my professional business, I always leave thread tails that I could bury away after. But on little samples, I don't worry about it. And again, the reason we made sure that we pulled it away a few inches is right now, there's also going to be a little tail of bobbin thread. So when we go to start our next design for stitching, we can actually stitch that out. So now that I have this beautiful little grid, we can actually do some designs with it. And I'll have you switch back to the main camera. Thank you. I have my fantastic friend Rachel over here doing tech support. She is the, what is the word? Yes, the faceless voice of technology. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear her when she talks at all because I have the sound reduction turned on for background noise. But yeah, the faceless voice of technology that is helping me out behind the scenes here today, which I would not be able to do this without her. So thank you very much to Rachel. So what I want to show you now is we're going to switch into some free motion, and we're actually going to do some ruler work. So now that I've created this grid, that grid might be a representation of the piecing that's in my quilt blocks as my quilt design. It might just be a pattern that's in the fabric that I want to add some quilting to following those lines. Now, depending on what our designs are, you know, ProStitcher is amazing. It can do things that are so precise and so detailed that I would really struggle with doing free motion. But the trade-off is if I'm trying to fit them into a shape that doesn't necessarily fit that design, I might spend more time trying to make it fit and fiddle around and fuss than actually quilting it out. So I've quilted out this beautiful little grid, and I'm going to show you a way that we could do some orange peels in here because I love orange peels. I think they're fantastic. They fit in so many different places. So with that, I'm just going to grab, I have my ruler base. So anytime we want to do ruler work, we need to have a ruler base on our machine. And again, I'm just going to slide the machine over to the side. And this essentially just slips right on to the throat plate. Oh, and actually, do you want to change to the needle camera? I forgot that we could actually see this. So these are the little pins onto the side. Now this is an extra purchase, so this doesn't come with the machine, but if you want to do any ruler work, you have to buy the ruler base, and then it comes with the little pins, and we just clip it into place. I already have my ruler foot installed on here, and again, I'm just gonna grab a ruler, and you can see right now, I'm pushing on the left edge of this ruler, and it is not gonna tip. If we didn't have the ruler base on, you could see how this would just tip and, you know, it would fall right off the edge. That would be disastrous because the ruler could get underneath the needle. You could break a needle, you could break the machine, you could wreck your timing, all of that. So always use your ruler base when you're doing ruler quilting. And again, look how amazing and stable that is, keeping this in place and flat and ready to go. So we got our ruler base, we have our sure foot, which is what we use for ruler work, and then we need an assortment of rulers. Now, now we can switch back to the main camera. I have this little multi clamshell ruler, and again, I don't know if that's going to show up terribly well. I don't know if I can. There's nothing dark in the background to show this off. Oh yeah, there we go. Put that under. Yeah, multi clamshells. We got 4-inch half round, 2-inch half round, a 3-inch half round, and an 1.5-inch half round. And we also have these beautiful etched lines in here that not only give you a 45-degree, 90-degree, your other 45, that when you're using these rulers, these are your registration marks. So if I wanted to line this up, I can make sure that I have it centered in between, you know, my lines here. I could say put it right up on that line, And, if I wanted to do just this little half quarter round, I could use those two registration lines and I could just follow that right along there and have a beautiful little quarter circle. So all these rulers have these wonderful little, and they're etched into the back. Now this is a 1/4 inch acrylic. And if we go to the main camera, I'm going to show you when you buy these rulers, they come in this fantastic packaging. And when you turn the packaging over, it actually gives you multiple suggestions of ways that you could use this ruler. And some of the rulers are really interesting. There are designs that I would not have thought what, oops, sorry. My camera has clicked off yet again. There we go. When you're looking at the packaging of the rulers, you're going to see that there is different designs that I wouldn't necessarily have thought by looking at the ruler, I could create those shapes. And again, sometimes even these are just plain circles. And when you're looking at the different designs, how you incorporate those circles together really does change the outlook of what you're seeing. So take a look when you go into a retailer and look at the back of the ruler packages to see what fun shapes you can do with them. Again, I'm just going to clear my space. So I'm going to work with the multi-clamshell. A fantastic little guy. You can do spirals with it. You can do circles. You can do clamshells. You can use just the small edge to do some orange peels. So if we move back to the needle camera, we're going to come around here. And the first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to disengage my gears on my ProStitcher. So actually, if we switch to the ProStitcher screen, under ProStitcher, I'm just going to hit gears. And if you heard that little sound, my machine is now disengaged from ProStitcher, and I have the freedom to do free motion quilting. It's just that quick. And now we'll switch to the needle cam. So again, always make sure to disengage your gears when you're doing free motion quilting. Otherwise, you will have very stiff movements while you are trying to stitch. So again, I'm going to change my machine into needle down, so it's always going to stop at with the needle down. I've already pulled up my bobbin thread, and I'm going to do 2 rows of just free motion quilting some orange peels. And we're going to see how accurate and good I can make my orange peels. Okay. And for those of you that don't know what an orange peel is, it's a little swoop. And we're just going to repeat that as many times. So I'm going to do, I'll do these 2 rows of grids going all the way up, and then I'll switch over to ruler work to do the other 2 grids. So I just serpentined across my 2 rows and back. I've come to my top edge, and now while I'm at this intersection, I'm going to work this whole line. So I'm going to work one side of the line and then the other. And again, I prefer to serpentine, so I'll go to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, back and forth. Other people prefer they'll go down the left side of each of those squares and then back up the right side. There's no right or wrong in this situation. It is just, what do you prefer? And now I'm just finishing up my design. And again, I'm going to Pull my machine about 5 inches away, pull it back, and there is my loop of bobbin thread. So, as you can see, not too shabby for free motion quilting. You know, this one's a little thin on that side, a little thicker on that side. So if you wanted to be more precise with your orange peels, what you're going to need to do is switch to ruler work. So I kind of like the idea. I'm going to use this 4-inch circle. And again, you can see it's just sticking over the line. But when I go around, that's actually matching fairly close to what this is going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, I'm going to start down here. I'm going to pull up my thread first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to position my ruler. Now, what I'm looking for here is I'm making sure that I am giving a nice, good coverage on the ruler with my hands. I'm keeping my fingers tucked in ever so slightly from the edge of the ruler, just to make sure that it's not going to get too close to the needle, where if it gets close to this screw on that side, you know, I might pinch my finger if it was too close to that. So I give myself about a 1/2 inch of room around the perimeter of the ruler, but I try and cover as much of the ruler as possible. And we talk about piano hands. So give yourself that full finger spread to cover as much ruler as you can. And again, at any point, you can stop, and the machine is going to stop with needle down, and then you reposition your hand or reposition the ruler, and then you can continue stitching. So again, so I'm going to work one swoop at a time, stop the machine, reposition the ruler, turn the machine on, stop the machine, reposition the ruler, stop, reposition. And again, now we're going to come across the top. And I've hit a problem. My ruler can't go far enough back right here. So what I would have to do is actually undo my ratchets and roll my quilt back so I have a little more space to do that. Because I'm doing this on camera, I'm just going to fake it, and we'll call it good enough. And again, now I'm going to switch hands, and I'm now going to use my right hand to hold my ruler because I'm holding it on the right side, and I'm going to use my left hand to turn the machine on and guide the machine. And again, I'm now going to come across and do this one. And now I should have just enough space to hold that ruler behind. And again, this is where you're going to have a little bit of contorting to make sure that you can reach with your hand behind where the needle is. And again, just slowly work my way around this design. So as you can see, and I missed my little target by a little bit, but each of these arcs is so much more precise because I was using a ruler compared to just doing it freehand. So we do have the option that when you want that precision, switch over to ruler work and you are good to go. So again, I'm going to pull up my needle. I'm going to move my machine about 5-6 inches away, grab that thread, needle down, needle up, and then I can clip my threads. And have we had any questions popping up? Or is everyone just stunned in silence? They're still saying hi. Oh, fantastic. Well, excellent. Well, we'll be going through and answering any of the questions in the chat as they come up after the fact. But if there's anything that pops up that you want an answer to live, put it into the chat. Let us know. We'll try and catch them all and read them. And, I can answer them as we're going. So we can switch over to yeah, there we go. So as you can see, when you want to focus on precision, ruler work is your best friend. When you want to focus on speed, free motion is your best friend. And again, when you want something that you're not confident doing either with ruler work or with free motion quilting, you can focus on ProStitcher. Now again, I just use ProStitcher to do that little grid, but if we wanted to do a much more intricate design, we could do a much more intricate design. So I'll have you switch over to the ProStitcher screen. So we're going to go to the File tab, Design, Open, and we're going to look for a block that I can stitch into this sort of square. Now that's going to look quite nice. Oh, perfect. 4 square filled. Looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? So this is our orange peel design, but with a beautiful cross hatching put into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition this to match where our grid is. So because I know that our grid was originally 9 inches, if I wanted to fill just these 4 squares in the corner, and those are the 4 that I didn't actually fill with any stitching yet, that is going to be 4.5 inches, which is half a 9. So when I take this design, I'm going to go Modify, Resize. I'm going to lock my aspect ratio so that the width and height change at the same time. And I'm going to bring this down to 4.5 inches. And then I'm going to hit, oh, there's nothing to baseline yet. So usually with baseline, what happens is anytime you make a modification, you're able to baseline. And just to clarify, baselining is not saving your designs. So, and yeah, if you want to switch, we can. Baselining does not save your designs. If you want to save your designs, you have to go to File, Save, and Save your design. That will allow you to reopen your design and work from it in the future. What baselining does is it compiles information so the system can process it faster and easier. So if you do a lot of modifications, you've changed the size, you've rotated it, you've moved it around, you've maybe incorporated multiple designs together, these are all things that we can do quickly and easily. But what happens is all of a sudden the system has to process line after line, and this is all like computer coding lines of information. When we baseline, what it does is takes that information, compiles it into more completed notes. So instead of going resize, 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 it'll just say resize 4.5 inches, move it to this position, rotate it so many degrees. And then the computer only has a few lines of code to read for it to, before it starts to stitch out. So baselining, it is a freebie. Use it as much as you want. There is no limit to how many times you can baseline too much. And the way I like to always think of it is I always imagine Oprah Winfrey giving out free stuff. You get a baseline, and you get a baseline, and you get a baseline. So throw it in there as many times as you can, as long as it's available. Now, right now, my baseline was grayed out. Any of the buttons on ProStitcher that are grayed out are not going to allow you to do them because it's not an option at the moment. So I haven't made enough changes yet to allow that baseline to happen, which means the computer will have an easy time compiling the information. The moment baseline becomes available, go ahead, throw it in there, use it as much as you want. So we can go back to the ProStitcher screen. So I now want to align it into this corner right here. So I have 2 options. I can go to Align, I can go set it to the bottom of my area and then to the right of my area, and that just popped it right over like that. I can go to no align. I could also go to reposition. And again, if I wanted to reposition it, I have to find out where my crosshairs are. So again, right now, my gears are disengaged. So we did free motion quilting. I don't have gears. The first thing I got to do, ProStitcher, engage my gears. Okay, now I have crosshairs. So that orange crosshair, that represents our needle. So that is where the machine is in relation to that. And what was the first thing we did? We had to create a frame space. Each and every time that you disengage your gears, you're going to have to recreate your frame space. So I'm going to go to the area tab. I'm going to come up to the top left side of my quilt, hit frame space, and I'm going to move down here, hit frame space again. So all of a sudden, and I'm just going to zoom out, that box is no longer where I left it. And I wonder why. Well, the moment we disengaged our gears, ProStitcher lost track of where it was. So I'm going to clear that area. And this design, I might as well not even have it because it no longer represents where it was quilted previously. So I'm going to go to Edit and Cut and remove it. So because I don't have an area to align to, how am I going to reposition this design? So we'll switch to the needle camera. So these are the 4 blocks that I'm going to use, and just disregard that there's those lines there. And I'm going to drop my needle right into the intersection of that. That now represents the very center of where I want my design to be. So back on the ProStitcher screen, if we go to Modify, Reposition, if I center my design on my crosshairs, that is going to match up perfectly on my needle. And if I want to double check that alignment, I'm going to raise my needle. And again, you might have to pull the thread when you take your needle out. And what I like to do is I like to zoom in 1 to 1. What that does is it zooms in so 1 inch of your screen is 1 inch of real quilting. So now that we have our 1 to 1 zoomed in, I'm going to go into a corner of my design. And right now I can't actually see what I'm doing. So I'm going to hit the pan button. And pan is going to allow me to click and drag on my screen just so I could see. I'm going to line up my needle into the top corner of the design. And if we check back on our needle camera, that is going to be lined up right into that corner intersection. I can then come down and check this bottom intersection right there. And if I go back to my ProStitcher screen, I can now pan and check, and okay, my design is going to land right there. So that looks like it's lined up pretty well. I'm going to hit the house button to refresh so I can see my whole design. And I'm going to start to quilt this out. So I'm going to hit the ProStitcher tab. I'm having the quilt button selected and run. And again, it's going to ask me to verify my settings. I haven't changed any settings, so I know I'm going to like them. Now make sure needle is up. I'm going to move my machine a bit to make sure that I know that my needle is up. And I'm going to hit proceed. And it's going to move right to that start point. And we can switch back. I'm going to hit the resume, and we can watch that stitch out. So somebody's asked in the comments, is this going to be able to rewatch? Yes, these will be on the Facebook page as well as the YouTube page to be rewatched later. Again, one of the many benefits of having ProStitcher is once you get this set up, you are now free to work on something else. So right now, I'm walking over and checking the comments and making sure that our cameras are all set up nice and ready to go. Uh, when I'm normally running my business, I will start to work on some bindings, or I will be getting my next quilt ready to go onto the machine, or I'll be cutting batting, any of the things that need to be done. Now, I wouldn't leave the room just in case something happens because computers are computers and errors do happen. But again, I do have my hands free to work on another project. And I do know there's some people out here, they just love to sit and watch their machine stitch because, I mean, come on, how mesmerizing is this? And I see a few more comments. Vicky Hearn says, stunned in silence with a smiling face. That's sometimes how I feel when I'm watching ProStitcher stitch out something so beautiful. Oh, can't wait to try this. Haven't done blocks in ProStitcher much. Again, ProStitcher is fantastic for doing custom quilting block by block. You're able to set very specific areas, very specific sizes, and you can just skew them to make them fit. Oh, Diane Heiss. Moxy XL with ProStitcher since last October. Love it. Fantastic. Again, these might be small machines, but they are small and powerful. They definitely have everything you need to do that you can do compared to the larger machines. Okay, so we can switch back to the main camera. So again, some people might say, well, I don't want the small machine. I want the big machine because they're bigger, they're better. Well, I just showed you free motion quilting, ruler work, and ProStitcher. That's what we can do on a Moxy XL. What can we do on the big machines? Free motion quilting, ruler work, ProStitcher. There's not much difference. Now, speed is a difference, but one of the things that comes with a slightly slower speed is you can actually work with threads that are a little bit more finicky. When we get to higher speeds, you might have more issues with thread shredding, breakage, things like that. Now, in a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be focusing on the different threads that work beautifully on, all of our long arms, but some of the advantages and disadvantages to each of them. So stay tuned in 3 weeks from now for that one. But again, so speed does make the thread consistencies a little different where you do have to look out for that. So going ever so slightly slower works out. On my large machine, I actually run them at 80% speed instead of 100% because when I try and run them at 100, I have issues with my thread. So at 80%, my big machine runs beautifully. I found on the Moxy XL, I run it at 100%. And I have beautiful stitch outs without thread breaks or thread shredding. And again, for those of you that are wondering, I'm using Omni Thread by Superior. It's a 40 weight polyester thread. It's Polywrap Polycore. That's what I run my business on. I love it. It comes in 180 different colors, something like that. So there's a color for almost every single quilt. It also comes in variegated colors, which look beautifully when they're stitched out with a nice short color change. So again, those threads, using a 40 weight polyester, it works really well and runs quite well. And again, I'm doing this at 100% with zero issues. So again, this machine covers all of them that you can use just about any thread you want, run them at just about full speed. Now, again, if you're working with a much finer thread or it's giving you a little difficulties, you have maybe a batik backing, a batik top, or lots of appliques that have fusible webbing, that's where I might slow down my machine. But that's something a little more specific. Oh, fantastic. Questions? Yes. So this is the 18-inch machine, the Moxy XL, on a long arm frame. So again, we do have stationary machines where it is a stationary long arm mounted into a table where you are sitting and moving the fabric underneath the machine. Those we have, it's called the Moxy ST. That is ST for stationary. This is the Moxy XL, so it's the same size machine, but it is mounted on our long arm quilting frame, and this frame is called the loft frame. And I should mention this, when you purchase the machine, when you purchase the Moxy XL or any of the machines, it comes with a frame. So when you purchase the Moxy XL, you get to choose either an 8-foot loft frame, a 10-foot loft frame, or the little foot frame, which is only 5 feet wide. So you do have frame options, but that is included with the price when you purchase the machine. So this is the Surefoot. So, and again, if you switch over to the needle camera, I can show you. I have that prepared. So when you purchase the machine, it comes with, this is our standard closed toe foot, as well as a open toe foot. And again, this open toe foot gives you a little extra visibility of the needle from the side. So those are the 2 feet that come included with the machine. Now this is what the Surefoot looks like. And again, you can see it's a much taller profile here. And again, I'm going to hold it up. So I have the closed toe is on the left and the Surefoot is on the right. You can see that it is almost twice the size in height. So what that does is when I hold it up against my ruler, you can see that we have full contact. So this foot actually hops while we're stitching. So it's riding up and down. And again, because it's the same height as our 1/4-inch thick acrylic rulers, it gives us good full coverage that the ruler isn't going to accidentally slip above or slip below. Compared to our closed toe foot, you can see here, half the height, as it's moving, it would be a lot easier for it to hop over. So again, this is the closed toe foot, only for doing free motion quilting. And again, anytime you're doing ruler work, you're going to switch to the Surefoot. Now again, this is the Surefoot that I have mounted onto the machine. You can do free motion quilting with it. You can do ProStitcher quilting with it. You don't have to change it so it's only for ruler work. Now the difference is when you're doing free motion quilting, because it is a little bit of a taller profile, it's a little bit harder to see where the needle is going to hit. So once you spend enough time with your machine and you have this sort of sixth sense of knowing exactly where that needle is going to fall, you don't really need the visual as much because that's going to work well. Now, in addition to that, we do have, this is actually my favorite foot here. This is called the Glide foot. This is the Glide 3-foot. So it's a nice clear acrylic foot. And again, it's got these little compass marks to give you your directions. And again, it's like a little shallow bowl. So as you're stitching, it will glide over any bumps in your seam allowances. If you have any applique that has a little bit of decorative stitching at the edge, like maybe a blanket stitch or a zigzag or a satin stitch, if you do any embroidery work, this is going to glide right over that. Now, again, can you use this with rulers? Absolutely not. There's no point of contact. That doesn't work. So the Glide foot is basically only reserved for free motion quilting or ProStitcher quilting when you want it to glide over. So if you're doing ruler work, it must be the Surefoot. Surely it must be the Surefoot. For those of you that have seen Airplane. Any more questions? Yeah?
Joyce asks, how would you set up Stitch in the Ditch?
So there's a couple different ways. So Rachel made a face at Stitch in the Ditch because she doesn't know what it is. So Stitch in the Ditch, and for anyone out there that might be unfamiliar with the term, it really just means that you're going to be stitching in the perimeter between either a block and your sashing, maybe it's between your sashing and a border, anytime that there is a line of 2 different items. So that could be applique, your blocks, your sashing, your borders, if you want to stitch right in the ditch. So again, If I want to do it free motion, I'm gonna choose to use ruler work. That is going to give me the most precise stitch in the ditch possible. And again, I have this one, this is the Handy Quilter, the skinny ruler. It's 2 inches by 10 inches. I love this because any longer, you don't have any control over it. So some of the rulers that are longer, they're nice, but they're not that much bigger. Um, sorry, looking at the wrong camera. The skinny ruler, any longer than 10 inches, you really don't have control over it. So it doesn't need to be bigger. I have control of this section right in the middle of it where my hands are. So I'm just gonna focus on quilting maybe 5 inches or so. Then I'm gonna stop the machine, move the ruler, and then stitch the next couple inches. So my preferred method is using ruler work for stitching the ditch. Now, you can use ProStitcher to stitch in the ditch. Now, once you take all the time to program ProStitcher, if your fabric shifts or moves, it's going to stitch exactly where you told it to. But if your fabric moves, you might no longer be in the ditch. So it's not my favorite way of doing stitch in the ditch, except if you want to do, say, a 1/4 inch away from the ditch and actually do an echo quilting following those lines. ProStitcher is fantastic because if it's ever so slightly off, but you're not actually in the ditch, it's not noticeable. But if you're doing a competition-worthy quilt and you need it to be perfect, ruler work really is the best way to have that precision.
Going back to the feet, I think
Mhm.
follow-up question, do all 3 of those little backpack shoes come with
No. So when you're going to purchase it, you're only going to get the 2 feet. That is going to be the closed toe and the open toe. Those are the only 2 that come standard with it. Now, again, those are going to be perfect for free motion quilting or doing ProStitcher. If you want to do ruler work, you're going to need to purchase the ruler base, the Surefoot, and then as well rulers to actually use. And again, you have to make sure that the rulers you're using are a 1/4 inch thick acrylic. So all of the Handy Quilter gadgets, all the rulers, they're all compatible with each of our machines that we make because they're all a 1/4 inch thick acrylic. So those are the 3 things you need: a ruler, the Surefoot for doing ruler work, and the ruler base. Mhm.
if you have a big machine, will it still create an area when switching from RW, which I assume is will work, to ProStitcher or blocks?
So uh, yes, you don't need to create a frame space in ProStitcher Premium. That is only for ProStitcher Light that you have to create a frame space. Your area is going to be how you choose to set up your block. So again, what the area does specifically is it gives you a visual on the screen of exactly where you're saying, this is the area I would like you to stitch. So let's say you had a applique block of sunbonnet Sue and you wanted to quilt just in the background behind the sunbonnet Sue. If you bring in your block and your design is say a 10-inch block and it fits the 10 inches around the perimeter, you could create an area that follows the outline of your sunbonnet Sue and you can crop the inside of your design away so it will not stitch over top of that design. So again, you can use an area to either remove the inside or outside of a design as well. Let's say you have a block that when you were piecing it, maybe you were a little tired, you weren't maybe paying attention to your seam allowances, and they came out just a little bit wonky. It's actually 9 3/4 inches and by 10 inches tall. Well, if you create an area that follows the 4 corners of that design and skew your block in, it will automatically make that block fit that area perfectly without you having to manually modify, resize it, or do that. And again, we got a bit of time. Why don't we demo that? So we'll switch over to the needle camera. And I'm just going to break my threads to save on some time. And I have my handy iron off pencil here. I love these for marking quilts. So I'm going to draw myself a block that is, not so perfectly square. It's a little wobbly. That corner might be a little bit out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear everything on my ProStitcher screen. And again, so now I have just the only thing I have is my frame space. And I'm going to move my machine to one corner of the block and I'm going to go to area, and I'm going to hit multi-point. And if we switch back to the needle, I'm just going to go along and I'm just going to follow my drawn out block. And anytime I see a little variance where, you know, that corner might stick out a little bit, something might be a little bit off, I'm just going to follow along and do a little multi-point. And what this is going to do is make our area match that shape perfectly. Okay. And if we go back to our ProStitcher screen, you can see, this is maybe a little bit more exaggerated, but this is an example of, my block wasn't perfect, or maybe it was an abstract kind of block, and I want to make my design fit it nicely. So we're going to go File, Design, Open, and we're going to find something nice that's going to work, that won't take too long to stitch out. Let's do this nice sawtooth. No, I want something with corners. Let's just do the spiral block. So I'm going to change back to select. So as you can see, that's not exactly going to fit perfectly well into there. But if we go to Modify, Skew, and we're going to try our first skew, oh, that did not do a good job. So we have two different skews, skew and border skew. Skew works well in convex areas. So if my edges were bubbling out, it would work well. I'm going to try border skew. Well, that did a much better job of bringing it into size. It didn't do it perfectly on those edges, so this might not be a good candidate to fit this design. So I'm going to take that off to the side. If we bring in a design that only has corners, let's maybe try this block of hearts. And let's see what this looks like skewed in. So skew 1, no good. Border skew, look at that. It has stretched each of those petals perfectly into the corners, and we don't have to worry about where that edge is. Now, if I wanted to do that stitch in the ditch that we had talked about, because I've already marked this border under ProStitcher, what we can do is I can select Trace Area. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to stitch the area first. So I'm going to hit Proceed, and we can switch to the needle camera. And this is going to follow right along where I've marked my area. And again, I wasn't perfectly precise following my stitch line because I wanted to exaggerate it. So that has followed along that exaggerated edge. And now that I've done my traced area, I can now stitch my design. So again, if I took the time to make sure that that area matched my design perfectly, that would make sure that if I wanted to do that stitch in the ditch, that those would have followed that ditch line perfectly. And there we go. So as you can see, that did a really fantastic job of stretching the design right into those corners, even though we have that wonky area there. So we'll switch back to our main camera. So as you can see, the Moxy XL is a powerful machine, and ProStitcher Light really is a powerful tool that we can do almost everything we can do with ProStitcher Premium, we can do that in ProStitcher Light. So again, really powerful. So again, some of those key features. We have an 18-inch throat space. So our working space is a little bit smaller. And like I said, we take off about 6 inches to make sure that we have enough room when we get to the bottom of our quilt that we won't run out of space. It stitches at 2100 stitches per minute. It has all 3 stitch modes that our larger machines have. So really, it does do all the things that we need it to do. And again, with the frame, we can have it in our standard, either the high position or low position. So those are the same features that we have on our larger frames. And again, in an 8-foot or 10-foot length. So we can quilt very big quilts with this machine. So, is there any other questions that have popped up into there? Mhm.
What was the name of that pencil again?
Oh, these are the handy iron-off pencils. They come in a package of 4. They last quite a bit of time, and they are my absolute favorites. And these are iron off. So you just hit them with a warm iron and they will disappear. And I've never seen the marks come back. I don't know if anyone can attest to anything differently, but I've never had them come back. And the nice thing is, when you draw with them, they do not rub off like some of the other chalks that sort of make a little bit of dust and then wipe away. They don't disappear in the sun, they don't disappear with water. They stay there until you iron them away. So, handy iron off pencils.
Asks, is there any reason why you couldn't or shouldn't leave the ruler base on all times?
So, that's an excellent question. You can leave the ruler base on at all times. The only times that it sort of affects me or I notice a difference, we have the bungee clamps at the side to give us a little bit of tension on the side of our quilt. Now, we always suggest that you have 4 inches of extra backing fabric and batting compared to the size of your quilt top. Now, that's to give us some room to pin it at the top, pin it at the bottom, and have those clamps at the side. Now, with that ruler base extending a few inches on either side of the needle plate, when you get to the side where those clips are, sometimes they will hit the clips. So that is about the only time that I find it irritating to have the ruler base on is doing that. So on my machine that I do a lot of custom quilting on, which is an Amar 20, I leave my ruler base on permanently. And I just know that I might hit the clips when I'm at the edge and it doesn't bother me. On my machines that I primarily use for Pro Stitcher, being the Moxy XL and my Fusion, I don't put the ruler base on unless I'm using it, just because when I'm doing Pro Stitcher, I don't need it. But again, there's no reason why you can't leave it on your machine as long as you're aware that it might hit the clips. Okay, fantastic. Well, if nobody else pops a question in the next minute or so, I think we'll be wrapping up. So again, I'm just gonna get this back into frame. I wasn't sure if you could see the whole machine. There we go. So again, this is the Moxy XL, and I have an 8-foot loft frame. So I can quilt about 88 inches or maybe 86 inches wide. You do lose a little bit of space on each end of the frame compared to what size the frame is set up to, just because that will be from the needle to the left edge of the carriage that you can't actually reach at each side of the frame. One of my other favorite features of the loft frame, I put extra hand wheels on all my machines. So off to the side, and probably won't be able to see it on camera. Yeah, there's my hand wheels are on each side. I have installed extra hand wheels. So there's one on the take-up bar, and I put an extra one on my quilt top bar. So when I have to roll up my quilt top onto here, it saves my wrist from having to roll it up manually, and I can just crank it up with the hand wheel. That is one of my other favorite features. No, no questions. Everyone's being a little quiet today.
This is thank you for all the tips and instructions.
Oh, you're welcome, Brenda. Well, again, there's going to be a lot more. Well, I'll talk about this. I will be hosting the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live, Handy Quilter Live, uh, each Thursday for the month of July. So we have 3 more coming up. Now, let me just pull up so I make sure I have them in the correct sequence. Uh, Next Thursday on July 17th, we're going to be talking about quilting a border with ProStitcher Light. So we're going to talk about joining designs together, how we quilt a border, how we chunk them down the sides of our quilt, and some of the options with that. On July 24th, we're going to talk about how to quilt an edge to edge with ProStitcher Light. So I like to do things a little bit different than the way some other people have done them. So I'm going to show you both versions of that, of how to quilt an edge to edge. So we're going to be focusing primarily just on ProStitcher. And then on July 31st, we're going to be talking about different types of thread on the Moxy. So I'm going to be showing a few more quilt samples that have different threads on them. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each thread and how we actually make the adjustments to our machine so we can make sure that we can use these threads as stress-free as possible. Because isn't that what quilting is supposed to be about? Having fun, getting quilts finished, and not being too stressed about it. So excellent.
For the question from Vicky,
Mhm.
you said something about allowing for extra 6 inches of space with the Moxy XL.
So again, with each machine, so this is an 18-inch machine. What I'm talking about, the 6 inches, is basically the amount of space you sort of lose from the bars on your machine and from the needle to the edge. So it's 18 inches as the machine is measured from the needle to the back of the harp here. But we don't actually have 18 inches of quilting space. We have closer to 12 inches. Now, if you were using a regular Moxy, that's a 15-inch machine, you minus that 6, you might only have 9 inches of quilting space. And if you're on a Amara 24, that's a 24-inch machine, take off your 6 inches, so you'll have about 18 inches of quilting space. So what I'm talking about is just sort of a safety number, that if you're quilting a large quilt, once you start to roll up your quilt onto the take-up bar here, it gets in the way, and you can see where the machine is sort of bumping into my fingers. If you imagine that there's more quilt rolled up here, the machine can no longer reach. So all of a sudden, you lose the amount of space you can quilt as the quilt rolls up. So this is the same for every single machine that's out there. If it is mounted on a frame, the more quilt you have rolled up, so if you have a really fluffy backing fabric, if you have a really fluffy batting, it's going to take up more space. So you might lose a little bit more than those 6 inches. Now, again, if you're only doing a small project, say a baby quilt or a lap quilt, you're probably not going to notice it. But if you're doing a 120-inch long California King Supreme, that's where you're really going to notice, oh, there's a lot of fabric rolled up on the bar. So I should make sure that my rows are a little bit smaller just to make sure that I could still do my design at the bottom of the quilt. So that's just a safety number, just to go a little bit smaller than what you initially have, so you don't run out of room at the end.
Vicky asks, will you show how to install a handwheel?
I could. On the loft frame, it's just one screw. So really, what you do is after you purchase them, all you have to do is there's a little pin bracket. You remove that pin, you slide in the hand wheel, and you put the one screw in. So, I mean, I guess that's about as much of a demo as I could do for that. For the loft hand wheels, they're very easy to install. On the studio frame or the gallery frame, it is actually part of the end wheel assembly. So that end wheel where the gears are has to be removed and replaced with that. So it's a little bit different. But with each of these, when you purchase the extra hand wheels, inside the box is a printout instructions that give you that little blown up diagram that show you how to install that. And again, depending on how close or far you are from your retailer, if you're purchasing brand new and you order the hand wheels, when your retailer comes to install your machine, they will do it for you right there. And if you already own one, they are fairly simple. On the loft, it's maybe a 2-minute job to add them on. On the studio frames or gallery frames, it's maybe more of a 10-minute job to get that done. But all the instructions are included when you purchase those.
Does the Moxy XL have a folding one?
Yes, it does. And I meant to, excuse me, I'm going to step off camera. I meant to prepare that earlier, and I had the box ready to go, and I forgot to bring it closer to my film set. Everything in my studio is almost usually within hand's reach. So this is the Moxy accessory kit that you get when you purchase your Moxy. So inside of it, again, we have this is my ProStitcher Light quick reference guide. There's the front page of that ProStitcher Light quick reference guide. So again, when you purchase the machine, you're getting the machine, and it includes the frame. You're also going to get a bobbin winder. So this is the bobbin winder for the Moxy, and it does say Moxy on there. And again, this telescopes up. And again, when you purchase it out of the box, you do have to install that thread mast onto there. It doesn't normally fit into the box. So that is that. Let's see, we're going to show. So you also get some of your basic maintenance tools. So there's a bottle of oil, there's a screwdriver and wrench, a little needle threader. General maintenance, you're going to add a drop of oil to the hook area every bobbin change. So that is the only maintenance you need to do on a regular basis. You're also going to get a package of pins so you can load your first quilt. You're also going to get a little assorted thread kit. There's also a channel lock. Sorry, forgot the word. A little manual channel lock on there. And we have a Moxy how to get started little pamphlet there. And again, right there, this is the quick reference guide. And again, it's going to be a little hard to read that on there. But again, it has our threading guides, needle recommendation for sizes of needle compared to the thread that you're using. And on the back, it goes through all of the different display screen options that you have. And you also get a sticker kit. So if you want to deck out your machine, you can deck it out with all these cool little stickers. And again, depending on which way you set up your machine, if you have difficulty remembering which way your backing is supposed to go under the bars, we have these arrows here that says backing fabric with an arrow going under, and quilt top here with an arrow going over. Just as a general reminder, okay, my fabric needs to go this way, that goes that way. And again, we also have another quick reference guide here where it shows in the high position or low position which way the fabrics are supposed to be loaded. So again, these are all the things that come with your machine. We really want to make sure that when you get your machine, you're ready for success. You're ready that you can load your first quilt and you can get started right out of the gate. So again, a bobbin winder with a couple of empty bobbins, a little sample of thread kit. There's going to be a package of needles, as well as the screwdrivers for changing your needles, a lint brush, oiler, thread winder, and everything you need on the frame to get started. So yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. Hand wheels, no, you don't need them at both ends. Basically, there is a gear with a little ratchet that you will lock in place to keep the bars from rolling, unrolling. And if you put a hand wheel, you want to put it at the same side as your gears because you're going to have to go to that side to unlock your gear to move that hand wheel. Now, in theory, you could put an extra hand wheel at the far side, but you'd have to walk over here, undo your gear, and walk over to this side and roll it up. So would you want to do that? No, but for accessibility issues, you might choose to do that, and there's nothing wrong with having two, but really only one per bar is required. And again, if you want to put one on your backing bar as well as your quilt top bar, you can't put them both on the same end because they're too close together that they bump into each other. So you might choose to put one on that side and one on the other side if you wanted to put 3 hand wheels on your frame. So that is an option if you want to do the third one. But yeah, I start with 2. I've found that that's good enough for me. But again, the more the merrier, right?
Does the
Neither. It's a standalone. So again, you could put it on the, if you get the table inserts for your loft frame, you could put it on the back of the frame. But again, it has its own little plate, like this little metal base. So it just plugs in anywhere. So because I have 3 machines, I actually have 3 bobbin winders. Do I need 3 bobbin winders? No, I don't. So I have 1 bobbin winder centrally located in my studio beside where all my thread and bobbins are. And because all my machines use the same size bobbins, I don't have to worry about keeping them separate because they're all hand quilter bobbins. So I just have 1 thread winder over there, bobbin winder over there in that setup. And again, if I wanted a second one, I could put it close to this machine, but I keep it where my thread is. But yeah, separate unit, place it wherever you have room.
Questions for 90 minutes.
Okay, well, I think we'll wrap it up. Well, thank you all so much for joining. I've had a blast. I hope I've answered everything satisfactory and I didn't miss any important questions. If there is anything, we're going to go back through the comments and we'll answer them in there. And I hope you all have a fantastic day wherever you're watching from. And we'll see you next week, Thursday, when we talk about borders in ProStitcher. So excellent. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.